Black janitor solves $100 million problem in seconds. CEO's reaction shocks entire company. The boardroom on the 52nd floor of Phoenix Tech Industries was in complete chaos. Engineers paced frantically. Executives shouted into phones. And at the center of it all sat Gabriella Thompson, the 36-year-old blonde CEO who had built this billion-dollar tech empire from nothing. But today she looked like a woman watching her life's work crumble. The servers crashed again, announced her CTO, sweat beading on his forehead. That's the third time this week. We're losing money by the minute. How much? Gabriella's voice was ice cold. Though inside she was panicking. At this rate, we'll lose our biggest client by tomorrow. The Johnson Industries contract alone is worth $100 million annually. Gabriella closed her eyes. Phoenix Tech's revolutionary cloud storage system was supposed to be unhackable, unbreakable, perfect. Instead, it was failing spectacularly, and she had 24 hours to fix it or watch her company collapse. What do our top engineers say? They've been working around the clock for 3 days. Nobody can figure out what's wrong with the algorithm. The code looks perfect on paper, but in practice, the CTO shrugged helplessly. A knock on the conference room door interrupted the crisis meeting. Gabriella's assistant, Jessica, peeked in nervously. "Miss Thompson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a maintenance update for you." "Not now, Jessica. Can't you see we're—" "It's urgent from facilities. You said to flag anything critical immediately." Gabriella sighed. "Fine. Send him in." The door opened and a tall black man in a gray janitor's uniform entered carrying a clipboard. He was about 30 years old with intelligent eyes and a quiet confidence that seemed oddly out of place in the tense boardroom. "Maintenance sign-off for Gabriella Thompson," he said politely, his deep voice carrying a slight southern accent. "That's me." Gabriella barely looked up from her laptop as she signed for the form. But as the janitor, his name tag read Tyrone Wilkins, turned to leave, something on the massive screen displaying their failing code caught his attention. He paused, studying the complex algorithms and data streams that had stumped Phoenix Tech's entire engineering team. "Excuse me," Tyrone said quietly. "Yes." Gabriella looked up impatiently. "I don't mean to overstep, but there's an error in your code." The entire boardroom went silent. 12 of the country's top engineers, executives with decades of experience, and computer science PhDs all turned to stare at the janitor. "I'm sorry." "What?" Gabriella's voice carried disbelief mixed with irritation. Tyrone pointed to a specific line on the massive display. "Line 847. You have a recursive loop that's creating a memory leak. It's not visible during small-scale testing, but when you scale up to enterprise level, it compounds exponentially until the system crashes." The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. "And you know this how?" Gabriella stood up slowly, her blue eyes fixed on Tyrone's face. "I have a master's degree in computer science from MIT. I wrote my thesis on scalable cloud architecture." Tyrone's voice was calm, professional. "The fix is actually simple. Change the iteration parameter from recursive to iterative. Add a garbage collection protocol every 10,000 cycles and implement a load balancer to distribute processing power." Gabriella's CTO, Harold Peterson, was frantically typing notes. That could actually work. But how did you see this when our entire team missed it?" Tyrone smiled slightly. "Sometimes you need fresh eyes when you've been staring at the same code for days. You stop seeing the forest for the trees." "Jessica," Gabriella called out. "Get our lead engineer down here now." Within minutes, the lead engineer was implementing Tyrone's suggestions. The room watched in stunned silence as the previously failing system stabilized, errors disappeared, and performance metrics shot through the roof. "It's working," Harold breathed. "The system is running at 99.7% efficiency, better than it ever has." Gabriella turned to face Tyrone, who was still standing quietly by the door, seemingly unaware that he had just saved a $100 million contract and possibly the entire company. What's your name? She asked. Tyrone Wilkins, ma'am. And you work for Phoenix Tech Facilities. Been doing this shift for about 6 months. The absurdity of it hit everyone at once. A janitor had just solved a problem that their entire R&D department couldn't crack. Tyrone, Gabriella said slowly. I think we need to talk. Hello viewers, before we dive deeper into this beautiful love story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Do you believe love can truly conquer prejudice? Let me know in the comments. I love reading them. And trust me, your words motivate me to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means a lot, and it drives me to create even more meaningful content for you. So, don't forget to comment, share, and keep spreading love. An hour later, Gabriella sat across from Tyrone in her private office, trying to process what had just happened. She'd sent the rest of the team back to work, but kept thinking about the quiet confidence with which this man had solved their most critical problem. So, let me get this straight, she said, leaning back in her leather chair. You have a master's degree from MIT. You're clearly brilliant and you're working as a janitor. Tyrone's expression remained calm. Yes, ma'am. Why? Tyrone was quiet for a moment, his hands folded in his lap. Because sometimes brilliant black men with MIT degrees still can't get jobs in their field. The blunt honesty of his statement hit Gabriella like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean, I've been applying for software engineering positions for 8 months. I've sent out over 200 resumes. I've had exactly 3 interviews, and all 3 times I could see the surprise on their faces when I walked in. They were expecting someone who looked different. Gabriella felt uncomfortable heat rise in her cheeks. That can't be right. Companies are always looking for talent. Companies are always looking for talent that fits their image of what talent should look like. Tyrone corrected gently. When your resume says Tyrone Wilkins and you list achievements like graduating summa cum laude from MIT and publishing papers in the Journal of Computer Science, most people form expectations. When those expectations don't match reality. He shrugged, and Gabriella caught a glimpse of the frustration he'd been hiding behind his professional demeanor. I need to work. I have responsibilities. So, I clean offices during the day and do freelance coding at night. It's not what I planned, but it pays the bills. What kind of responsibilities? Gabriella asked, her voice softer now. My little sister, she's 17, senior in high school. Our parents died in a car accident 3 years ago, and I'm her legal guardian. She wants to go to college, maybe become a doctor. That's more important than my pride. Gabriella stared at him, seeing Tyrone Wilkins clearly for the first time. Here was a man who had sacrificed his career ambitions to take care of family, who worked 2 jobs to support his sister's dreams, who had just saved her company without expecting anything in return. Tyrone, what you did in that boardroom, do you understand what you just saved us? A significant amount of money, I imagine. Try $100 million, plus our reputation, our client relationships, possibly the entire future of Phoenix Tech. Tyrone's eyes widened slightly. I didn't realize the scope was quite that large. It was, and you solved it in seconds, something our entire engineering department couldn't figure out in 3 days. Gabriella leaned forward. I want to offer you a job. Senior software engineer. Starting salary, $150,000. Full benefits, stock options, and I'll personally make sure your sister gets a full scholarship to whatever college she chooses. Tyrone was quiet for a long moment, and Gabriella could see him processing the offer. Why? He asked finally. Because you just proved you're exactly what this company needs. Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted mopping floors. Because, she stopped herself before saying, because I feel guilty about the systemic problems that led to your situation. Because you're brilliant and I'm not stupid enough to let you walk out that door. Tyrone smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him. When would you want me to start? How about Monday? That gives you time to give notice to facilities. Miss Thompson, I thank you. This means everything to me. To my sister. As Tyrone stood to leave, Gabriella found herself studying his face. The quiet dignity with which he carried himself. The intelligence that sparkled in his dark eyes. Tyrone. Yes, ma'am. Call me Gabriella. We're going to be colleagues now. After he left, Gabriella sat alone in her office, staring out at the Chicago skyline. In the span of 2 hours, Tyrone Wilkins had saved her company and challenged everything she thought she knew about talent, opportunity, and the barriers that existed in her industry. For the first time in years, she was looking forward to Monday morning. Monday morning arrived with unexpected drama. Gabriella was reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant rushed in looking flustered. Miss Thompson, we have a situation. What kind of situation? It's about Tyrone Wilkins. Some of the senior engineers are upset about his hiring. Gabriella's jaw tightened. Upset how? Harold Peterson is leading a group of complaints. They're saying you hired him without proper vetting. That it's some kind of diversity stunt. That he's not qualified for the position. Not qualified. Gabriella's voice was dangerously quiet. He solved their problem in 30 seconds. They're saying anyone could have gotten lucky with a guess. Gabriella stood up abruptly. Where are they? Conference room B. They called a meeting to discuss maintaining department standards. Gabriella strode down the hallway with a kind of purposeful energy that made employees step aside. She could hear voices through the conference room door as she approached. Look, I'm not saying anything against the guy personally, Harold Peterson was saying, but we can't just hire people off the street because they made one lucky observation. This is a serious engineering department, not a charity case. Exactly, agreed Sandra Mills, a senior developer. What message does this send to our team? That years of experience and proven track records don't matter. Gabriella threw open the conference room door. Actually, the message it sends is that I hire the best talent available, regardless of where I find it. The room went silent. 7 senior engineers sat around the table, all looking uncomfortable at being caught. Harold, you said Tyrone's solution was lucky. Well, It's just that. It's just that what? That he identified a complex algorithmic error in seconds that your entire team missed for 3 days? That his solution improved our system performance by 40%? That he saved us a $100 million client? Gabriella, we're not questioning his intelligence. You're questioning his qualifications based on what? The fact that you met him when he was cleaning the floors. Gabriella's eyes swept the room. Did any of you bother to look at his resume before deciding he didn't belong here? Silence. MIT graduate. Summa cum laude. Master's degree in computer science with a focus on cloud architecture. Published author in 3 major industry journals. GPA of 3.97. Gabriella's voice grew colder with each accomplishment. But I suppose none of that matters because he doesn't look like what you expect a brilliant engineer to look like. That's not fair, Sandra protested. This isn't about race, isn't it? Because if a white MIT graduate with Tyrone's credentials had walked into that boardroom and saved our company, would we be having this conversation? The uncomfortable silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, Gabriella continued. Tyrone Wilkins starts work this morning as planned. He'll be reporting directly to me until he's fully integrated into the team, and anyone who has a problem with that can update their resume because I won't tolerate discrimination in my company. As she turned to leave, Harold called out, Gabriella, wait. We're just concerned about team dynamics. The team dynamics will be fine as soon as everyone remembers that we're here to build great software, not to protect egos. Gabriella paused at the door. Tyrone Wilkins is the most qualified hire we've made in 3 years. If you can't see that, maybe you're the ones who don't belong here. 20 minutes later, Gabriella was waiting by the elevator when Tyrone arrived for his first day, wearing a crisp button-down shirt and looking nervous, but determined. Good morning, Tyrone. Ready for your first day? Yes, ma'am. Gabriella, he corrected himself with a small smile. I should probably warn you. Some of the team members are having trouble adjusting to your hiring. Tyrone's expression didn't change. What kind of trouble? The kind that happens when people make assumptions based on appearances rather than qualifications. I see. Tyrone was quiet for a moment as they rode the elevator up. Should I be concerned? Gabriella looked at him. This brilliant man who had probably faced this kind of skepticism his entire career. Who handled it with grace and dignity while she got angry on his behalf. Not at all. I've made it very clear that you're here because you're the best person for the job. Anyone who can't accept that will be working somewhere else. Tyrone smiled. Thank you for that. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see what I'm asking you to work on. Gabriella's faith in Tyrone was validated within his first week. She assigned him to Phoenix Tech's most challenging project, developing a new security protocol for their government contracts, expecting it would take months to complete. Tyrone delivered a working prototype in 10 days. This is impossible, Harold Peterson muttered, reviewing Tyrone's code for the third time. The encryption algorithms alone should have taken weeks to develop. Maybe if you're starting from scratch, Tyrone replied calmly. But I've been working on quantum-resistant encryption in my spare time for 2 years. I just adapted my existing research to your specifications. Gabriella watched the interaction from her office doorway, noting how Tyrone remained professional despite Harold's obvious reluctance to give him credit. The code is clean, efficient, and frankly better than anything our security team has produced. Sandra Mills admitted grudgingly. Where did you learn to write like this? MIT mostly, but also from necessity. When you're doing freelance work, clients expect perfect code the first time. You don't get second chances. Over the next few weeks, Tyrone quietly revolutionized multiple aspects of Phoenix Tech's operations. He streamlined their data processing algorithms, improved their user interface design, and created automated testing protocols that caught errors before they became problems. But what impressed Gabriella most wasn't his technical skill. It was his character. When other engineers came to him for help, he never made them feel stupid for asking. When his suggestions were initially dismissed, he found diplomatic ways to reintroduce them later. When credit for his innovations was given to other team members, he didn't complain. Doesn't it bother you? Gabriella asked one evening when they were both working late. What? The way some people treat you? The way they question your contributions, take credit for your ideas, act like you don't belong here. Tyrone looked up from his computer, considering the question. It used to, when I first started job hunting. Every rejection felt personal. Every skeptical look, every surprised expression when I walked into interviews, it all hurt. And now I remember why I'm here. I'm here for my sister, for the family I want to build someday, for the young black engineers who will come after me. If I let other people's limitations define my worth, I'm not just hurting myself, I'm hurting everyone who's counting on me to succeed. Gabriella felt something shift in her chest as she listened to him. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. Maybe. But someone has to be first. Someone has to prove that talent doesn't have a color or a background. Might as well be me. Tyrone. Yes. For what it's worth, you've already proven that. At least to the people who matter. Tyrone smiled and Gabriella realized she was falling in love with more than just his brilliance. She was falling in love with his integrity, his resilience, his quiet strength in the face of adversity. The realization terrified her. The Phoenix Tech annual company party was held at Chicago's most exclusive hotel ballroom. Gabriella stood near the bar, watching her employees mingle and celebrate another record-breaking quarter when she spotted Tyrone across the room. He looked incredible in his tuxedo, moving through conversations with the same quiet confidence he brought to everything else. But she noticed he was mostly talking to junior employees and support staff while the senior executives clustered in their own exclusive circles. Quite a success story, isn't he? Gabriella turned to find Robert Blackstone, chairman of her board of directors, standing beside her with a champagne flute. Tyrone, yes, he's been exceptional. Though I have to wonder about the optics. What optics? Robert's smile was thin. The CEO's pet project. The charity hire who gets special treatment. You know how people talk. Gabriella's grip tightened on her glass. Tyrone Wilkins earned his position by being brilliant. Any special treatment he's received is the same consideration I'd give any employee who saved us $100 million. Of course. Of course. But perception matters in business. Gabriella, some of our clients have traditional expectations about corporate leadership. Are you suggesting I should care more about the prejudices of our clients than the qualifications of our employees? I'm suggesting you be careful about how closely you're seen working with Mr. Wilkins. People might get the wrong idea. And what idea would that be? Robert's implication was clear without being stated. Gabriella felt anger rising in her chest. Robert, let me be very clear. Tyrone Wilkins is the most valuable addition to this company in years. If any of our clients have a problem with that, they're welcome to find another tech firm. Even if it costs us business, even then. After Robert walked away, Gabriella found herself studying Tyrone from across the room. He was laughing at something one of the junior programmers had said, his face animated with genuine warmth. When had she started looking forward to their late-night strategy sessions? When had his opinion become the one she valued most? When had she started falling in love with him? Gabriella. Jessica appeared at her elbow, slightly out of breath. There's a situation in the VIP lounge. Some of the board members are having a discussion about Tyrone. Gabriella sighed. What kind of discussion? The kind where they're questioning whether hiring him was a mistake. Charles Morrison is being particularly vocal about maintaining company standards. Where's Tyrone? That's the problem. He went to get some air on the balcony. I think he heard some of what they were saying. Gabriella set down her champagne and headed for the balcony. Her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and concern. She found Tyrone standing at the railing looking out at the Chicago skyline. His shoulders were tense, his usual calm demeanor strained. Tyrone? He turned and she could see the hurt in his eyes despite his attempt to hide it. Beautiful view, he said quietly. How much did you hear? Enough. Tyrone's smile was sad. They're not wrong, you know, about the optics. They're completely wrong. Are they? Gabriella, you hired me within an hour of meeting me. You bypassed normal procedures. You give me high-profile projects. You defend me against criticism from your own board. Tyrone turned to face her fully. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Gabriella could give him the professional answer, because he was talented, because the company needed him, because it was good business. But standing there on the balcony with the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes and the weight of everything unspoken between them, she chose honesty instead. Because the first day I met you, you changed everything I thought I knew about this company, this industry, maybe even myself. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Because working with you has been the most intellectually stimulating experience of my career. Because you challenged me to be better, to think differently, to see past my own limitations. Tyrone stepped closer. Gabriella. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as just an employee. I started seeing you as, she took a breath, as the most remarkable man I've ever known. The admission hung between them, changing everything. This is complicated, Tyrone said softly. Very complicated. People will talk. Let them talk. Your board, your clients, your reputation, Tyrone. Gabriella reached up to touch his face. Do you remember what you told me about not letting other people's limitations define your worth? Yes. Maybe it's time I took my own advice. When Tyrone kissed her under the stars, with the sounds of the company party drifting up from below, Gabriella knew there was no going back. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever price she'd have to pay for loving him, it would be worth it. Some things were worth fighting for. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments if you're loving it. Type 1 if not, type 0. We want to know what you think. For the next month, Gabriella and Tyrone carefully navigated their growing relationship. While maintaining professional boundaries at work, they found excuses for working dinners, late-night strategy sessions, and weekend emergency meetings that had nothing to do with business, and everything to do with their desire to spend time together. "This is dangerous," Tyrone said one evening as they sat in Gabriella's penthouse apartment, sharing Chinese takeout and going over project timelines that could have been reviewed in any conference room. "Dangerous how?" Gabriella asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. "We're playing with fire. If anyone finds out we're involved personally." "Are we involved personally?" The question came out more vulnerable than Gabriella intended. Tyrone set down his chopsticks and looked at her seriously. "Gabriella, I'm falling in love with you. Have been since that first day when you gave me a chance instead of dismissing me. But loving you and being able to be with you publicly are two different things." "Why?" "Because you're a billionaire CEO and I'm a former janitor. Because you're white and I'm black. Because the business world already questions whether I deserve my position." Tyrone's voice grew quiet. "If they find out we're together, everything I've accomplished will be dismissed as favoritism." Gabriella moved closer to him on the couch. "And what if I don't care what they think?" "You should care. Your reputation, your company, your relationships with clients and investors, it all matters. You matter more." Tyrone cupped her face gently. "Right now, maybe. But what happens when the board pressures you to choose between the company and me? What happens when clients threaten to leave? What happens when every business decision you make is questioned because people assume you're thinking with your heart instead of your head? Then I prove them wrong over and over again until they realize that loving you makes me stronger, not weaker." Gabriella. "Tyrone. I've spent my entire adult life making decisions based on what other people expected, what looked good for business, what fit the image of who they thought I should be." She took his hands. "For the first time, I'm with someone who sees the real me, someone who challenges me intellectually, who shares my values, who makes me want to be better. I'm not giving that up because some narrow-minded people can't handle an interracial relationship." Tyrone was quiet for a long moment. "Then, what about your family?" Gabriella's expression tightened. "What about them? Have you told them about us?" "Not yet. Gabriella, your family has old money, social expectations, certain views about appropriate relationships. How do you think they'll react when they find out you're dating a black man who used to clean floors?" The honest question forced Gabriella to confront something she'd been avoiding. Her parents, Richard and Patricia Thompson, were old-school Chicago society. They'd barely tolerated her decision to start a tech company instead of marrying into another wealthy family. How would they react to Tyrone? "They'll adjust," she said with more confidence than she felt. "And if they don't, then they'll learn to accept it or risk losing their daughter." Tyrone pulled her closer, and she could feel the tension in his body. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." "You won't be. They will be if they choose prejudice over love." "Promise me something," Tyrone said against her hair. "Anything. Promise me you'll really think about what you're risking. Your company, your reputation, your family, relationships. Make sure I'm worth it." Gabriella pulled back to look at him. "Tyrone Wilkins, you are worth everything. But more than that, we are worth everything." The confrontation came sooner than expected. Gabriella was in her office reviewing quarterly projections when her assistant announced that her parents had arrived for an unscheduled visit. Richard and Patricia Thompson swept into her office like a force of nature, their expressions grim with determination. "Mother, father, this is unexpected." "Sit down, Gabriella," her father commanded in the tone that had intimidated business competitors for decades. "We need to talk." "I'm quite busy." "About Tyrone Wilkins," her mother added. And Gabriella's blood went cold. "How do you?" "We know everything," Richard said, settling into a chair across from her desk. "The late-night dinners, the weekend meetings, the way you look at him at company events. Really, Gabriella? Did you think no one would notice? Patricia leaned forward, her voice carrying disappointment like a weapon. Darling, what are you thinking? A janitor? A black janitor? Former janitor. Current senior software engineer with an MIT degree who saved this company $100 million. Don't be glib with us, Richard snapped. You know what this looks like. The CEO having an affair with an employee she hired under questionable circumstances. Questionable circumstances. He solved a problem our entire engineering team couldn't crack. That's not how it will be perceived, and you know it. Patricia's voice softened, taking a different approach. Sweetheart, we understand that you're curious about different types of people, but this man is clearly using you for advancement. Can't you see that? Gabriella felt rage building in her chest. Using me? Tyrone didn't ask for this job. I offered it to him. Tyrone didn't pursue me romantically. I made the first move. Tyrone has done nothing but try to maintain appropriate professional boundaries while I've been the one pushing for more, which proves he's manipulating you. Richard stood up, pacing behind his chair. He's playing hard to get, making you chase him, positioning himself as the noble victim, so you'll feel guilty and give him everything he wants. Or, Gabriella said dangerously quietly, he's an honorable man with principles who genuinely cares about my well-being and reputation. Gabriella, be realistic, Patricia pleaded. This company is your legacy, our family's legacy. Are you really willing to risk everything for a fling with someone so inappropriate? Inappropriate how? Because he's black? Because he didn't inherit his wealth? Because he worked an honest job to support his family? Because he doesn't belong in our world? Richard's mask of civility finally slipped. Because people like him see people like us as meal tickets. Because mixing business with pleasure with someone like that will destroy everything you've built. Gabriella stood up slowly, her voice deadly calm. Get out. Get out of my office. Get out of my building, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize for insulting the man I love. Patricia gasped. Love? Gabriella, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Gabriella walked to her office door and opened it. Tyrone Wilkins is brilliant, honorable, and kind. He's everything I want in a partner. If you can't accept that, then you're choosing your prejudices over your daughter. If you continue this relationship, don't expect us to support you when it all falls apart, Richard warned. I don't need your support. I need your respect. And if you can't give me that, then I don't need you at all. After her parents left, Gabriella sat alone in her office, shaking with anger and hurt. She'd expected resistance, but the venom in their voices, the assumptions they'd made about Tyrone. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Tyrone appeared in her doorway, his expression concerned. Jessica said your parents were here. You look upset. They know about us. Tyrone closed the door behind him and sat across from her. How bad was it? About as bad as you'd expect. They think you're using me. That I'm risking everything for a fling with someone inappropriate. Gabriella's voice broke slightly on the last word. Tyrone was quiet for a long moment. Then maybe they're right. About what? About you risking everything. Gabriella, if your own parents are reacting this way, how do you think your business associates will respond? Your board of directors, your investors. I don't care. You should care. This is your life's work we're talking about. Gabriella looked at him, this remarkable man who was still trying to protect her even when her own family had attacked him. Tyrone, my life's work means nothing if I have to become someone I hate to protect it. I won't choose a company over love. I won't choose other people's approval over my own happiness. Even if it costs you everything. It won't cost me everything. It will cost me some things, maybe important things, but keeping you, that's gaining everything that actually matters. The decision to make their relationship public came when Charles Morrison, Phoenix Tech's biggest individual investor, cornered Gabriella at a charity fundraiser. Gabriella, we need to discuss the rumors about you and one of your employees. What rumors, Charles? About your involvement with that Wilkins fellow, the one you hired so hastily. Gabriella's jaw tightened. Tyrone Wilkins is one of our most valuable engineers. I'm sure he is. But perception matters in business. Our investors, our clients, they expect a certain level of professionalism from leadership. And what exactly are you implying is unprofessional? Charles moved closer, his voice dropping. Everyone knows you're sleeping with him, Gabriella. The question is whether you're going to end it quietly or force us to address it through official channels. Official channels? The board is prepared to call a vote of no confidence if this situation continues. We can't have our CEO making decisions with her heart instead of her head. Gabriella felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Charles, let me be very clear about something. My personal life is personal. My professional performance speaks for itself. This company has seen record growth and profitability under my leadership. But at what cost to our reputation? Our reputation, or your comfort level with interracial relationships? Charles's face flushed red. Don't you dare suggest this is about race, is it? Would we be having this conversation if I were dating a white executive from another firm? Would you be questioning my professionalism if Tyrone Wilkins looked different? This is about maintaining appropriate boundaries. No, this is about controlling my personal choices because they make you uncomfortable. Gabriella's voice grew stronger. Well, here's something that might make you even more uncomfortable. I'm not hiding anymore. The next morning, Gabriella called a company-wide meeting. Employees packed the main auditorium, buzzing with curiosity about the sudden announcement. Thank you all for being here, Gabriella began, standing behind the podium with Tyrone beside her. I wanted to address some rumors that have been circulating about Phoenix Tech's leadership. The room went silent. Tyrone Wilkins and I are in a relationship. We have been for several months. I wanted you to hear this directly from us rather than through gossip or speculation. A ripple of surprise and whispered conversations swept through the audience. I also want to be very clear about something else. Tyrone earned his position at this company through merit, talent, and exceptional performance. He has saved us millions of dollars, revolutionized our security protocols, and consistently delivered results that exceed expectations. Gabriella's voice grew stronger as she continued. Our relationship began after he was already established as a valuable team member. It has never interfered with our professional responsibilities or compromised our business judgment. She turned to look at Tyrone, who stepped forward to the microphone. I want to address the elephant in the room, Tyrone said, his deep voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. I know some of you are wondering if I'm here because of my relationship with Gabriella or because of my qualifications. Let me be clear. I would never accept a position I hadn't earned. And Gabriella would never offer one based on personal feelings rather than professional merit. He paused, scanning the room. I'm here because I love solving complex problems, building innovative solutions, and working with incredibly talented people. The fact that I also love Gabriella Thompson doesn't change my commitment to excellence or my respect for this company. Gabriella returned to the microphone. Phoenix Tech has always been about breaking barriers, pushing boundaries, and refusing to accept that the way things have always been done is the only way. We've disrupted industries, challenged competitors, and created solutions that seemed impossible. Her voice grew passionate. I refuse to let personal prejudices or outdated social expectations limit our potential as a company or as individuals. Tyrone and I are committed to Phoenix Tech's continued success, and we're equally committed to being honest about who we are. Any questions? Gabriella asked. A young programmer in the middle section raised her hand. Will this affect any of our current projects or client relationships? No, Gabriella replied firmly. Our work speaks for itself. Any client who would end a relationship with Phoenix Tech because of our leadership's personal lives wasn't the kind of client we want anyway. Another employee stood up. What about the board of directors? Are they supportive? Tyrone and Gabriella exchanged a quick glance. The board will need to make their own decisions about their comfort level with our leadership, Gabriella said diplomatically. But I want to be clear that neither Tyrone nor I will compromise our integrity or our relationship to appease anyone else's prejudices. After the meeting, word spread quickly throughout the tech industry. By afternoon, business journalists were calling. Social media was buzzing, and Phoenix Tech stock price was fluctuating wildly as investors tried to process the news. Any regrets? Tyrone asked as they sat in Gabriella's office watching news coverage of their announcement. Only one, Gabriella replied. What's that? That we waited this long to be honest about who we are. Tyrone smiled and pulled her close. So what happens now? Now we prove that love doesn't make leaders weaker. It makes them braver. The emergency board meeting was called for the following Friday. Gabriella sat at the head of the conference table, Tyrone beside her, facing 7 board members whose expressions ranged from concern to openly hostile. Gabriella, Charles Morrison began, his voice cold and formal. Your recent announcement has created significant concerns among our investors and business partners. What specific concerns, Charles? The stock price has dropped 12% since Monday. 3 major clients have requested meetings to discuss the leadership situation, and frankly, the board questions whether your personal judgment is affecting your business decisions. Board member Linda Crawford leaned forward. We're also concerned about potential conflicts of interest. How can we be sure that your relationship with Mr. Wilkins isn't influencing personnel decisions, project assignments, or resource allocation? The same way you've always been sure, Gabriella replied calmly. By looking at results. Phoenix Tech's performance has never been stronger. Our projects are ahead of schedule, under budget, and exceeding client expectations. That's not the point, snapped Richard Blackwell, the oldest board member. This is about maintaining professional standards, appropriate boundaries, and corporate image. Tyrone spoke up quietly. Mr. Blackwell, may I ask what specific professional standards you believe have been compromised? The standard that says CEOs don't get romantically involved with their employees, especially employees they hired under questionable circumstances. Questionable how? Tyrone's voice remained calm, but Gabriella could feel the tension radiating from him. You were hired after a 5-minute conversation in a boardroom. No formal interview process, no reference checks, no standardized evaluation. It appeared to be favoritism from the beginning. And my performance since then? Tyrone asked. The problems I've solved, the systems I've improved, the money I've saved, the company could have been accomplished by any qualified engineer given the same opportunities. The condescension in Blackwell's voice was unmistakable. Gabriella felt her temper flare. Richard, that's not only untrue, it's insulting. Tyrone has consistently outperformed every engineer in our department. His innovations have revolutionized our security protocols and efficiency systems. Nevertheless, Charles interjected. The board has serious concerns about the appearance of impropriety. We're prepared to offer you a choice, Gabriella. What kind of choice? End this relationship and return to appropriate professional boundaries, or face a vote of no confidence in your leadership. The ultimatum hung in the air like a challenge. Gabriella looked around the table at faces she'd known for years. People she thought were allies, mentors, friends. You want me to choose between my personal happiness and my professional position. We want you to choose between a temporary infatuation and the company you've spent your life building. Linda said. Gabriella, be realistic. This relationship has an expiration date. Men like him don't stay with women like you long term. They take what they can get and move on. Tyrone stood up slowly, his dignity intact despite the insult. Miss Crawford, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of my character and my feelings for Gabriella. Do I? How much money have you saved since she hired you? How many opportunities have opened up for you? How much has your salary increased? My salary has increased because my performance merited it. My opportunities have expanded because I've consistently delivered exceptional results, and my savings. Tyrone smiled slightly. Most of my earnings go to my sister's college fund and my parents' mortgage. I'm not getting rich off this relationship. Yet, Richard muttered. Gabriella had heard enough. That's it. This meeting is over. Gabriella. Charles started. No, Charles. I've listened to enough. You want to know what's affecting my judgment? It's listening to people I respected reveal themselves as narrow-minded bigots. Gabriella stood up, her voice carrying the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. Tyrone Wilkins is brilliant, honorable, and hardworking. He's also the man I love. If this board can't accept that, then maybe it's time for new board members. You're making a mistake, Linda warned. The only mistake I made was caring more about your approval than my own integrity. Gabriella gathered her papers. You have 24 hours to decide whether you want a CEO who leads with both her head and her heart, or whether you'd prefer someone who makes decisions based on fear and prejudice. As they left the boardroom, Tyrone took her hand. Gabriella, you don't have to risk everything for me. Yes, I do, she interrupted. Because if I don't, I'm not the woman you fell in love with. I'm not even the woman I want to be. The next 24 hours were the longest of Gabriella's life. She and Tyrone went to his apartment where they waited for the board's decision while trying to pretend everything was normal. Your sister called, Gabriella said, hanging up her phone. She wanted to thank you again for the college check you sent. Asha's excited about starting pre-med at Northwestern. She can't believe she's actually going to be a doctor. She's going to be amazing. She has your determination and intelligence. Tyrone was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. Gabriella, what if the board votes you out? What if we lose everything? We won't lose everything. We'll lose some things, maybe important things, but we'll have each other. That's not enough. You've worked your entire life to build Phoenix Tech. I've worked my entire life to become someone I could be proud of. Choosing you over their prejudices, that's the decision I'm most proud of. Tyrone pulled her into his arms. I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone. I love you, too. Whatever happens tomorrow, that won't change. The call came at exactly 10 a.m. the next morning. Jessica's voice was tense with emotion. Gabriella, the board has reached a decision. They want to meet with you and Tyrone in an hour. What did they decide? They wouldn't tell me, but Charles Morrison asked me to have security on standby. Gabriella felt her stomach drop. Security on standby meant they expected her to be escorted from the building. Gabriella. Tyrone had heard enough of the conversation to understand. Whatever happens, I want you to know that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Tyrone, no. Let me say this. You've made me believe that I deserve good things, that my dreams matter, that someone like me can build a life with someone like you. Even if this ends badly, you've given me that gift. An hour later, they walked into the boardroom together, prepared for the worst. The 7 board members sat around the table, their expressions unreadable. Gabriella, Tyrone, Charles began. Please sit down. They took their seats, hands clasped tightly together under the table. The board has deliberated extensively about the leadership situation at Phoenix Tech, Charles continued. We've reviewed financial reports, client feedback, employee satisfaction surveys, and performance metrics. He paused, letting the tension build. We've also had several difficult conversations about our own biases, assumptions, and the difference between personal comfort and professional judgment. Linda Crawford spoke next. Tyrone, your work at Phoenix Tech has been exceptional. Your innovations have saved us millions of dollars and positioned us as industry leaders in several key areas. Gabriella, Richard Blackwell added reluctantly. Your leadership has been exemplary. Even with the recent complications, the company's performance under your guidance has been outstanding. Charles cleared his throat. Therefore, the board has decided to retain both of you in your current positions. Gabriella felt her knees go weak with relief. However, Charles continued. There are conditions. What conditions? Gabriella asked. First, any future personnel decisions involving Tyrone must be approved by a committee, not made unilaterally. Second, we want regular third-party audits to ensure no conflicts of interest. And third, Charles looked uncomfortable. We want you both to undergo couples counseling with a business psychologist to ensure your relationship doesn't compromise your professional judgment. Tyrone and Gabriella exchanged glances. The conditions were patronizing and insulting, but they were also survivable. We accept, Gabriella said. All of the conditions? Linda asked, surprised. All of them, because we have nothing to hide and everything to prove. After the board meeting, as they walked back to their offices, Tyrone stopped in the hallway. Couples counseling with a business psychologist, he said, grinning. Regular third-party audits? Gabriella replied, laughing. Committee approval for personnel decisions. At least they didn't ask us to wear matching uniforms. Tyrone pulled her into his arms right there in the hallway, not caring who saw them. We won. We survived. Winning comes next. What's next? Gabriella smiled. The same brilliant smile that had attracted him from the beginning. Next, we prove that love doesn't make leaders weaker. It makes them unstoppable. 6 months later, Phoenix Tech was featured on the cover of Forbes as the company that chose love over fear and won. Under Gabriella and Tyrone's joint leadership, the company had not only recovered from the initial stock drop, but had reached record highs. The Wilkins-Thompson partnership has revolutionized corporate leadership, the article read. Their combination of emotional intelligence and technical innovation has created a workplace culture that attracts top talent and delivers exceptional results. Gabriella looked up from the magazine to find Tyrone reading over her shoulder in their shared office. A compromise that satisfied the board's transparency requirements while allowing them to work closely together. Wilkins-Thompson partnership. Tyrone raised an eyebrow. I like the sound of it. Gabriella replied, leaning back against him. Speaking of partnerships, Tyrone reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Gabriella's breath caught. Tyrone, I know this is complicated. I know there will be people who disapprove, who question our motives, who make assumptions about us, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life proving them wrong with you. He dropped to one knee right there in their office with the Forbes cover story spread across the desk and the Chicago skyline stretching out behind them. Gabriella Thompson, you saved my career, challenged my assumptions, and showed me what it means to love someone brave enough to fight for what matters. Will you marry me? Through happy tears, Gabriella looked at this remarkable man who had walked into her life as a janitor and become her partner in every sense of the word. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, absolutely yes. As Tyrone slipped the ring onto her finger, their office door burst open and their entire engineering team poured in, cheering and applauding. Jessica followed with champagne, and even Harold Peterson, who had been skeptical of Tyrone from the beginning, was grinning and offering congratulations. How did you all know? Gabriella asked, laughing through her tears. Tyrone's been carrying that ring for 3 weeks. Sandra Mills said. We've been watching him work up the courage to propose. 3 weeks? Gabriella looked at Tyrone in surprise. I wanted to make sure the timing was right. After everything we've been through, I wanted to propose when we were celebrating victory, not just surviving crisis. And now? Tyrone pulled her close, not caring that their entire team was watching. Now we're unstoppable. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments if you're loving it. Type 1, if not type 0. We want to know what you think. 1 year later, the wedding took place at Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry, a venue that reflected both their love of innovation and their commitment to education and progress. The guest list was a perfect blend of their two worlds. Tech industry leaders sitting next to Tyrone's family from Georgia. Gabriella's society friends, mixing with community activists and civil rights lawyers. Asha Wilkins, now a sophomore pre-med student, served as maid of honor, while Tyrone's old facilities coworker stood as best man. Even Gabriella's parents, who had slowly come around after seeing how happy Tyrone made their daughter, were in the front row. Friends, family, and colleagues, the officiant began. We're here to celebrate not just the union of Gabriella and Tyrone, but the triumph of love over fear, understanding over prejudice, and courage over convention. As they exchanged vows they had written themselves, their words carried the weight of everything they had overcome together. Tyrone, Gabriella said, her voice strong and clear. You walked into my life and solved a problem I didn't even know existed. The problem of living according to other people's expectations instead of my own truth. You showed me that real strength isn't about having power over others, but about using whatever power you have to lift others up. Her voice grew more emotional. You challenged every assumption I had about talent, about worth, about what it means to lead with integrity. I promise to love you, support your dreams, and stand beside you as we continue changing the world together. Gabriella, Tyrone replied, his deep voice carrying across the museum. You saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. You believed in my worth when the world told you I had none. You risked everything to love me openly and proudly. And in doing so, you taught me what real courage looks like. He smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. I promise to spend my life proving worthy of that courage, supporting your vision and building a future where our children will grow up in a world more accepting than the one we inherited. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the entire museum erupted in celebration. As they kissed, surrounded by exhibits celebrating human innovation and progress, both Gabriella and Tyrone knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. A story of love overcoming barriers that others thought were insurmountable. At the reception, Charles Morrison, who had become one of their strongest supporters after seeing their results, stood up to give a toast. A year ago, many of us questioned Gabriella's judgment when she chose love over conventional wisdom. Tonight, I want to publicly apologize for that doubt. He raised his glass. The Wilkins-Thompson team has proven that when leaders have the courage to be authentic, when they choose integrity over image, when they believe in love over fear, they don't just build successful companies, they change entire industries. The toast was echoed by hundreds of voices, but Gabriella only heard Tyrone's whispered words in her ear. We did it. What did we do? We proved that some love stories are strong enough to rewrite the rules. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by friends and family who had learned to see past their differences to the love that bound them together, Gabriella thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a crisis-filled boardroom to this moment of perfect joy, Tyrone had walked into her life as a janitor and become her partner, her equal, her greatest love. Together they had built something beautiful. Not just a successful company, but a relationship that proved love really could conquer all. Their love story had begun with a problem that needed solving. It had become something much more powerful, a testament to the truth that when two hearts recognize each other, when two minds work in perfect harmony, when two souls commit to fighting for each other, no matter what obstacles they face, they don't just find happiness, they change the world. And as Tyrone spun her around the dance floor, with the lights of Chicago twinkling through the museum windows and their future stretching out bright and endless before them, Gabriella knew that their greatest innovations were still ahead of them. Love had won. Not just for them, but for everyone brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, the heart knows better than society what makes a perfect match.